after being Christianized. Even more ungrateful was their propensity for rebelling and murdering their benefactors, which, of course, resulted in their dying even faster. And African slaves couldn't be brought in fast enough to replace them. There had been only one solution: find a new land, with more Indians, hopefully healthier ones. So Ponce de Leon had equipped this expedition at his own expense. "And then," Alaminos continued, "when we asked the Indians in the Bahamas about it, they told us about this wondrous island to the northwest." He chuckled again, without humor. "Whenever they find out what it is we're looking for, they always tell us that, yes, they've heard about it. They know of it somewhere else, somewhere over the next horizon." Ponce de Leon frowned and ran his fingers through his frosted beard. "So you think they've just been telling us whatever will get rid of us? That there really is no fountain of youth?" Hearing no reply, he pressed on. "But didn't the ancients speak of such a fountain in the terrestrial paradise? Didn't the Englishman John Mandeville see it and drink from it?" "So he did," Alaminos admitted. "Of course, he said a lot of things." Ponce de Leon ignored the last part. He leaned over the rail and stared through the subtropical twilight at the shore, indefinite in its marshiness. "Tomorrow morning we'll go ashore one more time and see what there is to find. Maybe capture some Indians and have my son put them to the question. We can't give up the search." He left unspoken the reason why they, or to be strictly accurate, he couldn't give up the search. At 53 he was very nearly the oldest man he knew, and of course he ought to be thanking God for being alive and active at such an exceptional age, and yet he had felt the chill of oncoming winter in many ways, in painful joints, in shortness of breath, in the way the world was more and more blurred in his eyes, and in the increasingly frequent times he was unable to take pleasure from a woman, or even worse, uninterested in doing so. The concept of giving pleasure to a woman was simply too alien. No, it was unthinkable that he should never be young again. "Tomorrow morning," he repeated, with even greater emphasis. Juan González Ponce de Leon ran a hand through his sweat-soaked black hair as he turned from the terrified bound Indian and reported to his father. "I don't know. It's not the same language as the Taínos speak on Puerto Rico, but I can puzzle out some of it, the way you could in Italy if you only spoke Spanish. And he seems to be saying that there's something just south of here, something magical." "A fountain?" demanded Ponce de Leon, with the gruffness he habitually used to disguise his pride in his son. Juan González had been with him in Puerto Rico, and as more than just an interpreter. He had been able to disguise himself as an Indian with only minimal staining of his skin. His Andalusian mother had obviously had some Moorish blood in her, if you went back far enough, although of course everyone politely pretended not to notice that. Spending this time among them, he had gathered valuable information, at the cost of numerous wounds. Yes, having such a son was yet another reason he should be satisfied with his life. So why wasn't he? "No, there's no word for that, or if there is, it's too different from anything in Taíno for me to ask him. All I'm certain of is that his people are terrified of it and avoid it, and he seemed to be trying to tell me about corpses, but corpses that were not of men." Juan Bono de Quejo muttered something in his native Basque. He was the captain of the Santa Maria de Consolacion, the second of the expedition's ships, and was taking his turn to come ashore while Bermudez remained aboard Santiago. "Demons?" he wondered aloud. They all crossed themselves reflexively. Juan Garrido